I'm going to be real with you. If I didn't join the jazz band in high school, I don't know where I'd be right now. I'd be like one of those chumps that just eats like bags of chips and watches YouTube videos all day. But anyway, jazz really gave me something meaningful to delve into, and I had a blast playing it in high school. And that's why today I'm going to share with you 5 important lessons I learned about jazz from high school. Most of these things I learned directly from my jazz band director in high school, who, looking back, I'm very thankful I had him as a teacher. He was passionate about jazz, and he really made sure that we learned some important fundamentals about the genre itself. Without further ado, number 1 is essentially to comp on upbeats. And if you guys don't know what comp means, comp is just short for comping, chat. If you don't, it's just slang for comping. My jazz director basically emphasized that when you comp on the upbeats, you create this sense of forward motion when you play jazz. And one thing I learned is that jazz is all about forward motion. We need to be anticipating the beat so that the music has this push to it, basically. And upbeats anticipate the beat, so it comes a little bit before you expect the downbeat. And it pushes the music forward, basically. And to show what that might sound like, I'm going to comp over a B-flat blues with the metronome on 2 and 4, which is something you should definitely practice. Anyways, here is how that might sound. Now, admittedly, some of those were downbeats, but I think that might give you a sense of that push we need in jazz when you comp on the upbeats. And also, syncopation and upbeats in general creates this, this bounce to the music. And it makes sense since jazz was originally meant for dancing. It just creates that, ba, 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 da, da. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Number 2 is do something different than the last soloist. So say you're in like a group setting playing jazz and the last soloist was just, shredding or something, playing 16th notes, all that fast stuff. Do you want to keep on doing that? Do you want to play the exact same solo that person did? What you want to do is change things up for the audience. Like, I guarantee you, to be honest, people don't really like listening to jazz in the first place, but if they do in a live setting, they're not going to want to hear the same exact solo happening over and over again. Just think about, like Miles Davis and John Coltrane. They collaborated a lot. Were their solos ever, similar in the way they played them? No. It would always be something like Miles Davis using a lot of space in his solos, and then Coltrane, who is more dense. But it's just that perfect contrast between their solos where you get the space of Miles Davis and the denseness of John Coltrane. But it creates excitement in the music because things are changing from soloist to soloist. So basically, whatever the last soloist did, try to do something different than them. Whether it be using more space, maybe different dynamics, like playing quieter than they did, maybe having a different arc to your solo, like starting quiet and then going to loud, or maybe even the opposite, going loud to quiet. Just something different. Jazz to me is all about contrast. And when you change things up from chorus to chorus, that creates excitement. And this is how my jazz director said it to me, just things should be changing from chorus to chorus. And if you're a drummer, the same thing goes for you. You shouldn't just be playing straight swing the entire song, you need to be changing feels for each soloist. because we need things to be changing. Okay, number 3 is to experiment with the different flavors of the scales that you play. So my jazz director said that chord tones are like your regular old ice cream flavors, like chocolate or vanilla. And he said if with a scale that the extensions or the color tones bring a different flavor that could be more exciting than chocolate or vanilla, is basically what he was getting at. Let's take a D minor 7, for example. So we have the notes D, F, A, C in the chord, and those would be like chocolate and vanilla, very regular ice cream flavors. But if you take the extensions, which would be the 9, which is E, the 11, which is G, and the 13, which is B, you get different sounds that can really, really be beautiful over a chord like that. To demonstrate this concept, I'm going to play over this random D minor Dorian YouTube jazz backing track I found. Here's how highlighting certain extensions over one chord can sound. It can sound pretty cool. Number 4 is to transcribe solos and learn tunes by ear. So my jazz director did this thing where he'd have us take a piece of sheet music that was blank, and he'd play us on piano the changes to a jazz standard we were about to learn. And he'd go bar by bar, just, playing the chord, and we'd have to use our ear to try and figure out what was going on. And sometimes he would play the root movement, which is very helpful in trying to discern what the changes are. And this just helps our ear very well. And as musicians, we need our ears to be good. We need to be able to learn things on the fly. We need to be able to transcribe things on our own. And when it comes to solos, it's so important to learn jazz language. And I recently got into transcribing, and you learn so much by analyzing another player's language, I suppose, and their way of playing. And you can apply that to your own playing in a lot of different ways. So overall, it'll really sharpen your ears if you learn tunes and solos by yourself. And our ear is one of the most essential tools we need to work on as jazz musicians. And finally, number 5, go for it. To put it bluntly, don't give a shit about what other people think of your jazz playing and your improvisation. You are in control of what you want to play, and you shouldn't fear judgment, so just let it go, make mistakes, play a solo that frankly might sound stupid, but you're really just experimenting and seeing what you like. And I remember in senior year of high school, I was in the jazz combo, and I was surrounded by a lot of good friends, and that was a weight off of me because I felt like I didn't have to improvise like super well. I was more goofy in my solos, and there were times where I was like, you know what, I kind of like just letting it all out there and being kind of silly. And to me, that's the spirit of jazz, doing what you want to do, and even if it doesn't sound good in the moment, just, riding with it and seeing where it takes you. It reminds me of a Victor Wooten quote that I'm going to botch, but it goes something like, students should be allowed to play at their worst sometimes. And what that means is, if a student takes chances and lets go of the need to be a perfect improviser, maybe they'll come up with some shit that they'll be like, wow, like I went for and I loved it. I'm going to keep on doing that. And you really need to harness that jazz energy of just letting go and playing the fucking music. Anyways, I hope you learned something valuable today. Subscribe if you like the content and you want to see more jazz guitar related YouTube videos, and have a great day.